Ah, your return. So is there more to report to me, mademoiselle?
And that is everything I have discovered so far.
We progress, mademoiselle. Let us see what we can learn.
Countess Adrenyi's maiden name is Gilbert.
Not a very Hungarian name, that.
Her accent is more American than Hungarian. Countess Andrenyi is Helena Gilbert, Sonia Armstrong's sister.
Ah, oui. It is easy to see why her devoted husband would try to hide that fact. Her account of the Armstrong household is of the greatest interest. Please to go over the points of her testimony that struck you.
Greta Olsen was Daisy Armstrong's nurse.
This may explain the zeal with which she cares for her young charges at her mission, and why she never had any children of her own.
Barnaby confirms Colonel Arbuthnot served with Colonel Armstrong.
Oui, the Royal Northumberland Fusiliers, a regiment most distinguished.
Barnaby has discovered that the last name of the Armstrong cook was Schmidt.
All of her ladies have said that she was a wonderful cook.
Dr. Constantine is a veterinarian.
The only man on the train who answers the description of Ratchet's unknown enemy, and that is his only secret? Bah!
Pierre Michel has no family.
Never married, parents dead, his sister, her husband, and a niece dead in the car crash? Oh, this is enough to explain the sadness that haunts him, and yet he carries the happy family photograph with him, a wife and a child.
The nursemaid's full name was Suzanne Ferrier.
French. Yet no apparent connection to any of the others involved in that case. Ah, well, not every clue will lead somewhere.
Cyrus Hardman has worked for McNeil's for almost 15 years.
I wonder.
The father of Linda Arden's children was named Gilbert.
No marriage, just children. Ah, the smart set is often not so smart, I think.
I have all the pieces. All that remains is for me to assemble them properly.
Très bien, mademoiselle. You have done well. Mademoiselle Marceau, you will recall my observation to you of the many classes and nationalities one meets when traveling.
Yes, of course.
Try to imagine whether such an assembly would ever likely to be collected under any other conditions.
In America?
Oui, the great melting pan of America.
Melting pot.
This is the answer I made to myself as well. Only in America you might find a household composed of such varied nationalities. And what do we discover here? Such a household has recreated itself aboard this train. A household damaged almost beyond recovery 10 years ago by the man Ratchet. And so we near the end of at least one journey. Please to assemble our fellow passengers in the salon car. Oh, and please also to send for Michel and Dr. Constantine. I will need their assistance to convey me to the salon car.
You will present your solution?
I will offer 3 solutions. You, mademoiselle, will decide which of them will best serve justice. Eh bien, messieurs, we have before us a most delicate operation. Transferring the person of Poirot to the salon car, where the suspects, they are all assembled. Poirot is ready for the ordeal. Marche! Mon Dieu, take care!
Beware of Greeks bearing gifts.
Mesdames et messieurs, there are 3 possible solutions of this case. There is the solution concocted for the benefit of the Yugoslavian police, who were expected to take up the investigation. A little play that was then embellished with several improvisations. When I, Hercule Poirot, unexpectedly appeared on the stage. And then there is a solution that reveals the most careful plotting of a truly brilliant mastermind. And yet there is also a third, one of which I think even now that mastermind, in this carriage with us as I speak, has no knowledge. With the help of Mademoiselle Marceau, my able assistant, you see Poirot, he is also able to improvise, huh? I shall put all three solutions before you, and I shall ask Mademoiselle Marceau and the eminent Dr. Constantine here to judge which solution is the right one. Mademoiselle, are you ready to proceed?
Oui, monsieur.
Eh bien, we commence. Monsieur Ratchet had received the threats from an unknown enemy. Mademoiselle Marceau? The tone of these letters suggests an enmity born in the American underworld, of which Monsieur Ratchet was once a part. A former colleague in one of his kidnapping schemes? Who knows? We have the evidence of a detective Monsieur Ratchet hired to protect him.
The detective is Cyrus Hardman, posing as a salesman of typewriter ribbons.
The evidence of Monsieur Hardman, who is indeed a detective hired to protect Monsieur Ratchet, gives to us a description of a small, dark man with a womanish voice. Except for the voice, this description would only fit 2 men on this train.
Matteo, the Athens-Paris coach attendant, and Dr. Constantine.
Yet Monsieur Hardman's vigilance during the night shows that no one could have passed from the Athens-Paris coach to the Calais coach without his seeing them. So anyone in that coach must be exonerated. The enemy actually came aboard the train at Belgrade one of 2 ways.
Through the door left unbolted by Monsieur McQueen.
This enemy was disguised, leaving behind a button in Madame Hubbard's room when he used her connecting door. Mademoiselle, the disguise? A passkey was found in the pocket of this uniform, giving the murderer access to Ratchet's room. Ratchet was under the influence of a dose of his sleeping draught, light enough to wake him, but strong enough to prevent him from struggling as the killer left through the connecting door.
Masterman confirmed the dosage of the sleeping draught.
Oui, he did. Well, the murder weapon is obvious. Mademoiselle?
It is a stiletto, the type of knife carried by the criminal type in America called the mafiosi.
The killer planned to leave the train at the next station after committing his crime. Show to them the evidence supporting this, mademoiselle. Exact. The avalanche prevented him from reaching Broad. Even so, he went through with the crime and then hid himself.
The killer hid in an empty room in the Athens-Paris coach.
At first, in the Athens-Paris coach. Then later, it is in the hut. Mademoiselle found the uniform and the stiletto. But the killer had fled. He may have escaped down the mountain, or he may have come to his just reward somewhere out there in the snow. I think you will agree that we had followed the trail as easily as if we were tracking the footprints in the snow. Well, it is plausible. It certainly fits the most obvious set of facts. I applaud the mastermind who hides behind such an innocent face. The second solution asked more of the little Gressels, not only of Poirot, but those of Mademoiselle Marceau and Dr. Constantine as well. It was hidden most carefully. The unlikely accident of a means of communicating with the outside world, a part filled most ably by my dear friend Barnaby, made the truth, or at least part of it, easier to uncover. But I flatter myself that enough clues were found right here on this train that such communications were almost always but collaborations of conclusions that I had already reached. So, mademoiselle, we will begin again. First, I will speak to you of time. When did Monsieur Ratchet meet his end? I suspect Mademoiselle Marceau has the theory.
One 1:15 a.m. The watch was broken during the attack, and Madame Hubbard heard the killer in her compartment only moments later.
Let us examine each possibility in turn. 10:40 p.m. or earlier? No, I think not. Mademoiselle Olsen spoke to Ratchet from the doorway at 10:40 p.m., but she never went inside. It conjures the image most bizarre of her throwing a knife at him 12 times from the doorway. And how does she retrieve it? Is there string attached to the handle? No. No, that is a solution of a most lurid sort. 12:37 a.m.? A more interesting possibility. Monsieur McQueen states that Ratchet spoke no languages other than English, and yet the voice answered Michel in French. Still, I think this was simply a performance for the benefit of Poirot. One of the little improvisations. I was meant to see through it and say, no. Monsieur Ratchet, he was already dead by 12:37. He could not have cried out.
The broken watch said 1:15.
Oui, it did. And it fits with the time of Madame Hubbard's visitor. Now I digress for the reminiscence. I observed to Mademoiselle Marceau that one meets many classes and nationalities when traveling aboard the express. I asked her to imagine whether such an assembly would ever likely to be collected under any other conditions. And mademoiselle, what was your reply?
In America.
C'est ça. Only in America will you find a household composed of so many nationalities. Look about you. As our investigation progressed, it became clear that 9 passengers on this train are connected in some way to the Armstrong kidnapping. Who have we connected to that case, mademoiselle?
Colonel Arbuthnot. Mary Debenham. Princess Dragomirov. Antonio Foscarelli. Hector McQueen. Edward Masterman. Countess Andrenyi. Greta Olsen. Hildegard Schmidt. None of the above.
Précisément. These 4 alone, amongst the occupants of the Calais coach, would appear to have no direct connection with the Armstrong case. Yet I was struck by the curious coincidence that everyone in the Calais coach had an alibi. And these alibis are sometimes corroborated even by those not connected to the Armstrong affair. One of you stated to Mademoiselle Marceau that while Monsieur Ratchet got what he deserved, you would have preferred to see him properly hanged. The trial by jury is a sound system. Who said that, mademoiselle?
Colonel Arbuthnot.
Just so. Colonel Arbuthnot. Now that struck a chord with Poirot. I sat back and thought, a jury is composed of 12 people. There are 12 passengers in the Calais coach, discounting myself and Mademoiselle Marceau. Ratchet, he was stabbed 12 times. And the reason the Calais coach was filled in the middle of the winter was explained. All, I repeat, all of the passengers were in on it. They had to be. No alibi could be left to the whim of a stranger. Did this solution explain everything? Let us see. What were the clues that pointed to the first solution, mademoiselle?
All of these clues agree with the first solution.
Oui. And now, of course, my attention focused on Monsieur Hartmann, for he, the apparent outsider, had provided a key element in this artificial solution of an unknown enemy. How to explain his complicity? And then I remembered that Mademoiselle Marceau had told to me 2 suggestive moments during 2 different interviews with Monsieur Hartmann.
When he said the snow was bright.
Mais oui. The snow has not been very bright today. The sky, it is overcast. And in his apology, he mentions his fondness for French girls. Countess Andrenier told us that the nursemaid, she was French. Her name was Suzanne. Our young friend Barnaby Lewis confirms via the ham radio that her full name was Suzanne Ferrier, and that she was born near Paris. So, it is not so much a leap, I think, to wonder if perhaps the man from New York and the French girl working there might not have formed the attachment.
I've been a detective for almost 20 years, Monsieur Poirot, but I'm in admiration of you. Yeah, Suzanne and I were going to ask her uncle if we could get hitched. He was her guardian. And the kidnapping and everything. It was too much for her.
Her uncle, monsieur? And his name?
Oh, jeez, I can't say I remember.
A detective for almost 20 years? And you never even knew the name of your fiancé's guardian?
No, probably got it written down somewhere back in New York.
Enough of this foolishness. I can guess his name right now, and so I expect can Mademoiselle Marceau.
Monsieur Ferrier.
The picture in your valise, it is that of you, your sister, and her daughter Suzanne?
Oui, monsieur. After my sister and her husband died in a car crash, I raised Suzanne as my own child.
And so, that leaves only one.
Me? If the attendant is one of your killers, Mr. Poirot, that makes you 12. You don't need me.
No, madame. I have come to the odd conclusion that the person who has taken no part in the crime is the one who would be considered most likely to do so. I refer to Countess Andrenier. Her husband swore on his honor she did not leave her room last night. A count from a noble family? A rising young star in the Hungarian diplomatic service? Such a man does not swear upon his honor lightly. No, it is much more probable that he tells the truth. And it is the devoted husband who, so to speak, takes his wife's place. So you see, madame, we are back to 11 without you.
Well, I never. Wait until my daughter hears about this.
Why not tell her now? She is sitting there right beside you, Madame Arden. You are the instigator, or the director, I should say, of this entire performance. You, who Mademoiselle Debenham so rightly called the strongest character among us. And there you have it. Does this second solution explain everything? Let us see. Mademoiselle Marceau, what was the real murder weapon? But of course, A drama planned this carefully does not include the blood-stained stiletto with the fingerprints of some unknown. No, that is merely a prop, as were the 2 threatening letters. The burned note, of course, was a real threat. The conspirators most assuredly did not want this murder tied to the Armstrong kidnapping, and the true weapon, with no incriminating mark upon it, might never have been found if it had been thrown inches further.
Bloody steak knives aren't balanced properly.